Rob Manch. How and when do you see this crisis coming to an end, and do you think it'll lead to an overthrow of the government?
Well, we're not looking for regime change on Sudan. We're looking for them to stop committing genocide. And so the how is really easy. It's deploy a UN peacekeeping mission with 20,000 troops and a strong mandate to protect people. So that's no longer an if, it's just when will that happen? And that's what we're looking for leadership from our president and our Congress to help make that possible.
Mm-hmm. Every time we get to a genocide, is there the opportunity that if we identify it and stop it now, then perhaps this does not become a solution in the future? I mean, because we still are going through the baby steps that we went through during World War II. Mm-hmm. We identify it, we're not sure what to do with it, there's political will, there's military will. Is it part of your hope that if we can get the process through which the world community identifies and stops genocide, that nations might be less likely to choose that as an early option?
Yeah, definitely. Right now we're sending a signal to other people thinking about genocide that you can get away with it. As we've seen in the Holocaust of Rwanda, they were able to get away with large parts of their plans to exterminate a group of people. So by responding to Darfur quickly and effectively, we send that signal they're not going to get away with it. Mm-hmm. And it's scary because when Hitler was asked during the Holocaust, why are you doing this? Or how did you think you could get away with it? He said, remember, no one said anything during the Armenian genocide. Mm-hmm. So that's really important that we send a strong signal now to prevent it from happening again.
Okay. Yes.
I'm Sana Asif. You compared the Sudanese president to Hitler, but is there any proof that he actually supports the genocide and the killing of his own people?
Yeah, there's numerous documents from Human Rights Watch showing that the government is complicit in organizing and training and funding the Janjaweed militia. More importantly, he's the commander-in-chief, like our president. And there are gunships that fly again and bomb the villages, and there's clear documentation of this. The Janjaweed militia don't have gunships. It's the Sudanese Air Force that does. And he's been, our Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, our president, our Deputy Secretary of State have all asked him to stop these gunships, knowing that he's the commander-in-chief, and yet they keep on happening. So it's very clear that he is a key orchestrator of this genocide.
There is another victim of this crime against humanity, and that is the neighboring state of Chad. Talk to me a little bit about the refugees that they have been harboring, taking in, but not too far in, and what situation this puts their country under.
Sure, it's really concerning what's happening in Chad, because the genocide, it's not just refugees, which was what happened at the beginning. They were fleeing from the violence to safety on the border into Chad, but what's happening now is that the Janjaweed militia are now going into Chad. Mm-hmm. So the genocide is now becoming regional. Mm-hmm. It's gone from Sudan to Chad. And Chad is really unstable. The president is facing attacks from rebel groups in Chad that are trying to overthrow him through a coup. So it's very, very tenuous right now what's happening in Chad, because not only are they able to provide safety for Chadian citizens, they've now got a genocide that's leaked into their border, and now need to protect Darfurians that are being attacked there too.
I want to talk to the student in you, because once you decide to get involved with something like this, you have to keep pace with what's going on politically, what's going on in the military world, what's going on. What kind of resources do you have to make sure that when you do confront your political leaders, you have your facts straight to put maximum pressure on them?
Right. Well, as a good student, I do a lot of research. So I go to Google a lot, and Google News, and hear what's happening with the media to get the latest account of what's happening. I also still talk to a lot of my professors, and also consult a lot of experts on Sudan. One of them is an English professor at Smith College, Eric Reeves. He knows all the facts all the time. So I often will email him asking him, what's happened, what's the latest, how does this affect this? And we also do the same thing with members of Congress and with people in the executive branch as well. So we're always asking people who are older and wiser and more experienced than us to help us out.
And your communication with the political leaders, do you sometimes give them informational heads up as opposed to either confrontation or pressure? I mean, do you do as much as you can to make sure that they know as much as they can?
Definitely. They're swamped with requests on so many other issues, domestic and international, that many of them rely on us to give them information. So we both, when they ask it, provide them the information needed, and oftentimes we'll just forward them a news article if a recent rebel group attacked a town. We'll let them know and tell them what is a solution that they can do to help stop the violence. So we're always working with them. It's not that confrontational. There's a lot of engagement.
Students providing adults with homework. That's a concept that you ought to like. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, well, if and when the UN does send in a peacekeeping organization, how can we be sure that it's not going to be, or it will be nonviolent, and we won't affect like innocent civilians?
Well, that's part of the role of the United Nations peacekeeping force, is that they're international. Their mandate isn't to attack the government or attack the rebels. They're there to protect the people. So whoever attacks them, they're going to use as many nonviolent means as possible, but if need be, they will put a gun in someone's face and tell them that if they keep on attacking these people, they're going to face violence. So with other peacekeeping missions, successful ones like in Sierra Leone or East Timor or NATO stopping the genocide in Bosnia, those are things that we hope and expect, and we'll work with the United Nations to make sure that they reduce the level of violence to stop the genocide.
But you don't think that if they do put guns in the Janjaweed's face, they will cause more corruption and commotion?
They might cause more violence, but based on what we've seen, the Janjaweed are just ragtag rebels. A lot of them are your age that picked up a gun because they had to, they were forced to, or it was the only resource that they had. So if you have a U.S. Marine, or if you have another trained military person pointing a gun in your face who's had years of experience, you're more likely to put your gun down and say, okay.
Mark, I told our students at the top when I was introducing you that you had worked with the Office of the Prosecutor in the Special Court for Sierra Leone. Take just a moment to share with them what you saw in your time there. It was only a few months, but just to let you know that this is someone who's not just, talking out of academia and intellectual exercise, but you saw it up close and personal.
Yeah, I was in Sierra Leone, which is the most underdeveloped country in Africa, Western Africa, and there was a 10-year civil war with a rebel group called the RUF. And there's a movie coming out, Blood Diamonds, which sort of tells the story on how the natural resources in Sierra Leone were used to fund rebel groups and continue mining the diamonds and try to go against the government forces. And the worst part of it was that their famous crime was amputating people's limbs during the war. So there's many Sierra Leoneans who had their arms cut off, legs cut off. So I saw inhumanity at its worst or best, whichever way you look at it, in terms of Sierra Leone, seeing 4-year-olds crawl on the ground, having all 4 of their limbs hacked off. And when I was there with the court, I was just shocked that it took us 10 years to do something. All of a sudden, 10 years later, the international community, including the U.S., said, we'll hold these people accountable. And we knew about this. We knew about this early on, what the RUF was doing, and we did nothing. Similar with Rwanda. So I took this crime of omission that the court was saying that it was prosecuting people who they said had the knowledge and had the resources to stop what was happening and didn't do it, and said, well, that should apply to us as well. We're not committing genocide in Darfur, but by standing by and being silent and not doing anything, and having the ability to do something, we are guilty of the crime of omission. So that had a real impact to me while we were prosecuting these war criminals, and turned toward myself asking, I could have helped the Anne Franks. I could have helped be Paul Rusesabagina or an Oscar Schindler for the people of Darfur.
Okay. In the back, yes.
My name's